Okay, during the 1987 NFL draft, you were selected by the Los Angeles Raiders in the second round. What was your reaction?
Really amazed because I was on the phone with the San Francisco 49ers and they were telling me they were going to pick me in three or four draft picks, and then the Raiders called on another line because I was in a room that had three phone lines on it, so it was like bouncing around. It was just enthusiastic. You know, mom, dad was there, excited about what the next chapter had heard. We kind of, down in Philadelphia, we played football in between Miss Eunice Jones and her son Lonnie Jones's house right there. It was like a flat field. And on Sunday after morning church, us boys would go out and get dirty and come back to second service at 3:30, just dirty as we could be. But, we called that our NFL Sunday right there in Philadelphia. So to actually watch it, the ironic thing was I never dreamed that I would make it to the NFL. But when reality started setting in as a senior at UT, you're kind of like, okay, this may be something I accomplished. But it wasn't like I set out to accomplish that. It was like it just happened.
So there a certain coach at UT said, Bruce, if you do this and you do that, you can make it to the NFL?
I think that they just pushed me to be as good as I could be.
Okay.
My senior year, after the Sugar Bowl and playing three positions in the game and all that, then it was more of, hey, you're going to be able to do special things here. You keep your head on straight and work hard and continue to improve. I mean, I was never a big upper body weight room type of guy. I mean, I would come in there and struggle to do, but I could squat and power clean with any of them. But as far as just...
Is that where your explosion came from?
Yeah, I think that's where my explosion came from. So then you start looking at it more, so it's kind of like, okay, now I got to work extra hard to try to get upper body to catch up with my hips.
Okay.
So that was probably more of the focus my senior year once I realized that I was going to get the opportunity to play at that at the NFL level.
So what was the biggest adjustment that you had going from UT to the Raiders?
The biggest adjustment, there's probably two. When I got there, it was a little more laid back and relaxed atmosphere than being in college. So, okay, I got that. And then I got in that meeting room for the first time, and you look around, and it's like, whoa. Everybody in here is chiseled. Oh, shucks. I remember the first team meeting that we had out there. And then after the meeting, and that's back when you had the old suitcase cell phone that, I had got when I first went out there. I called back home and say, hey, I don't know if I can play with these guys. Kind of like, everybody here looks like Tarzan, It's like, everybody here is chiseled, and I'm kind of chubby and fat. I don't know how it's going to blend in and equate. So we've got our mini camps, and you go through your mini camps. And at the time, I was staying out there for off season and working, and every day we'd spend about 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2.5 hours with Art Shell. It was myself and another draft offensive lineman named John Clay. And it was kind of like, well, you guys are going to come in and we're going to need y'all to play right away. And it was kind of like, okay, so they was prepping us. So we get there and it's like, we've got our prep going every day. We get there in the morning, we do a few weights, then we do some on the field stuff, then we do some running. Then we actually go to training camp. So we go to training camp, and the first training camp's kind of like, okay, me and him both came from more run-based teams versus pass. And so we get out and practice, and it's like, okay, cool. Then I call home and say, well, I might stay here for a while. I think I might be able to do this. So then we have that first scrimmage where we've got 24 plays, 12 passes, 12 runs on the scrimmage. This was after the first week. So we go through that scrimmage, and the second team has got 12 sacks. And we did pretty good on some runs, just, boom. But if I wasn't giving up a sack, John Clay was giving up a sack. So you've got two big offensive linemen coming off the field, heads down, whatever, helmets in their hands, hanging, just kind of dragging. And Art Shell comes up, and he's like, did some good things today. And, you're kind of like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You say to yourself, and he's like, I think it's going to be all right. Said we'll scrimmage middle of the week, and I think it'll be a total improvement. But he's like, y'all saw some things that y'all hadn't seen before, and Howie Long and Greg Townsend and Sean Jones, that they were putting it on us. So he was like, said we'll just wait and see. Said don't get down too much, and that right there meant so much.
Was he the offensive line coach or head coach?
He was the assistant offensive line coach
okay.
at the time. Yeah.
Because he later became the
head coach. He later became the head coach.
Now you play 8 or 9 years with the Raiders.
I played 8 years with the Los Angeles Raiders,
yeah.
And then I was in Oakland for my last season.
Okay. So what are your best memories of playing with the Raiders? The story you just told probably is one of the highlights.
Yeah, that's one of the highlights. Being in a draft class, John Clay, myself, Steve Smith, Steve Berline, and John Giesick, and I think all of us were pretty good players. John got hurt his neck, so that hurt the length of his career. But I think all of us out of that draft class, if we would have stayed healthy, we would have had pretty good, long, successful careers in the NFL.
You hear a lot about the owner, Al Davis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell us any good stories about Al Davis?
He was a player's coach. I mean, he wanted you to agree with him, and if you didn't agree with him, it was kind of like, what do you know? But the thing I most remember about him is his loyalty. You could have a player that hadn't been around the Raiders in 20 years or something, and he could hear the voice or see the face and call the name right away. And that's the ironic thing is I was out there after my career was over, but before they moved from Oakland to Vegas, and I was had to tuck some friends. And we were walking on the hall, and the guys come up and say, hey, nobody can be on this hall, whatever. And then the people that's with me kind of start, you know who they are? And I'm kind of like, just calm down. And I go over and sit down. So then the security guys kind of apologize, and he comes over and apologizes to me about, this. I was like, dude, I said, I played here. I said, somebody said nobody on the hall. I said, he's probably getting ready to come down the hall. If somebody's out there in the hall, somebody's going to get fired. He said, you did play here. And I said, yeah. I said, so it wasn't no big deal to me. But then at the time, he was in a wheelchair, and he didn't really like people to see him in the wheelchair. Mm-hmm. So, but I called his name, and he tapped his little guy pushing him, and he was like, Bruce Wilkerson? What the blank are you doing in Oakland? Did you come back home to see the Raiders? Just that family atmosphere there was what I really remember about Al. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, he could be hard, shrewd businessman, all of that stuff. People that were members of his football teams. He really cared about them. And if somebody was down and out, he would help and try to pull them up just because they were a part of the family.
I didn't realize that. So after playing 1 year in Jacksonville, you finished your career in Green Bay with the Packers and helped them win the '96 Super Bowl. What was so special about that team?
Well, the ironic thing is I played in Green Bay December 26, 1993. And it was the coldest I'd ever been in my life. It made Buffalo seem like summer camp. So I was in Green Bay, and I left the Raiders. I was in Green Bay, and my agent had called me and told me, you know, Jacksonville's going to make an offer. So I'm sitting there talking to Ron Wolf, who drafted me to the Raiders. He was the GM at the Packers. And he's showing me the temperatures of all the games the last 2 years. He's not telling me that, okay, I've got Reggie White anchoring the defense, that our defense is going to be stout, Brett Favre is a premier quarterback, and we're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. No, he's selling me on temperature of what the outside temperature was for all the home games of 2 years prior. So I'm sitting there like, okay, Ron, you're pulling the wool over my eyes. Yeah, you know, the temperatures, whatever. So the Packers offered me an amount of money, and Jacksonville, my agent called me while I was there and had offered me the same amount of money. So I'm thinking warm, cold, coming from the west end of I-10 down towards the east end of I-10. I said, okay, well, let's go to warm weather. I wasn't thinking about Tom Coughlin being a new NFL head coach, coming from the most relaxed team in the league to probably the most structured team in the league down in Jacksonville. So, you know, you go through that season, and I was there to try to show Tony Baselli how to play in the NFL, because he was their first round pick, USC. But he already knew. He already knew how to be a pro. He was taught that at the University of Southern Cal, so he could step right in and play, which was great. So end up going through that season, everything was just super structured. Now when the season was over, I'm home in Knoxville, and I'm watching the playoffs, and I'm paying attention to the teams in the playoffs. And the NFC Championship game is the Green Bay Packers against the Dallas Cowboys. Ken Ruckers was left tackle. He was hurt. They played that game. Charles Haley was over there, and they needed a left tackle. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, my chance to win a Super Bowl was just pissed away because I was afraid of a little cold weather. And I was really just sitting there thinking that. So I was like, okay, Tom Coughlin was more of a hard-nosed regiment, and I was like, at this point in my career, my body will not take. You know, I said, I'm beat up. I said, so what happens over a career is you come in and you beat people with athletic ability. So my first 8 years in the NFL, I'd say I played, and athletic ability carried you. But those last 4, 5, 6, 7, however many you play, on the backside of that hill peak, you beat people with your knowledge and understanding of football. So I was at the point where I was, you know, knowledge and understanding of football, not just pure athletic ability, is, you know, making you win. So that's what really got me to say, hey, Green Bay, you know, I told Jacksonville I'm done, I'm not coming back. Tom Coughlin called me, I guess about 4 times, and on the 4th time he said, well, I'm going to have to release you. And then I told him before he told me, and he was like, who told you? Who told you? And I was like, nobody told me. I just understand the business side from football. And he released me. Ron Wolf called me, and I said, I can come And he's like, are you sure? Don't. So then I went up to Green Bay, and he told me what he needed is the year before that they was in a situation where they didn't have anyone that could step in and play, and he wanted to sign me as an insurance policy. So if they got in that situation again, they would have somebody to put in to play and still be competitive.
And it worked out.
And it worked out. It worked out. I tell people, I said the first 3 or 4 games that year, I was the highest paid card holder. That's back before everything went wireless. The offensive line had a line coach, and I'd stand there beside him. So basically, I was like an offensive line assistant coach, I guess, on game day, stand there beside him. Then somebody got hurt. I came in and I played a couple games at guard. Then somebody got hurt at tackle. Played a couple games there. Then I went back to the bench and sat over there. Then the last game before the last game of the season, they were like, okay, this ain't working, whatever. So then I stepped in and played left tackle the last game of the season and all the way through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. So it worked out well.
I can't imagine playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Did you bring your ring today?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot. But I mean, that was an experience. I mean, that was a magical run. And you know, when we have reunions and stuff till this day, you know, it's still like a brotherhood. And I think Mike Holmgren pushed that through from the guy making the most money to the guy making the least money. You know, all focused for the same thing, and everybody will reap the benefits of it. The only thing I regret about my time being there is we played in 2 Super Bowls. We won the first one, and we lost the second one. And winning the first one puts us as being a good team. But if you win back-to-back, that puts you in greatness or eliminates you as to be one of the most special teams in the NFL by winning back-to-back. And I think we failed to realize how important that was. But we did have, the year we won the Super Bowl, we had the number 1 offense, the number 1 defense, and the number 1 special teams in the National Football League.
I didn't realize.
So we really had some good coaches.
So you played in 2 Super Bowls?
Yeah. I played in Super Bowl 31 and Super Bowl 32.
Okay.
We won Super Bowl 31, and then Denver beat us in Super Bowl 32 out in San Diego.
And was that the year that David Clinton and John Napier came to visit you in Green Bay?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. The year after the Super Bowl, I think, is the year they came up and visited. Had a good time. Had a good time. I was, the most ironic thing was when I was in Southern California, I could probably have visitors about every other week. Mm-hmm. In Green Bay, it was kind of like I might have had 2 visitors per year because, you know, people would be, you know, they would call and I would say, hey, if you're going to come before Halloween. Yeah. And they'd be like, come before Halloween? I said, yeah. So, you know, I would normally Kevin White came a couple years in a row, but, you know, it was nothing like people wanting to come to Southern California.
Well, who was your favorite NFL coach you played for?
My favorite NFL coach.
Could be assistant or head.
Yeah, I would say Art Shell.
And why is that?
Art Shell. I mean, just more of that. I mean, you was away from home, and you know, you really didn't have a father figure or a male to look up to, and I think, you know, he was there, and the thing that you didn't realize was, you know, you realize he was a good player or whatever, but hindsight being 2020, I should have been picking his brain on how to try to get a gold jacket. But that was the furthest thing from my mind, because football was still fun and it was still just a game to me, and I didn't really realize, but he brought that focus in to, this is how you feed your family. So that put a little more emphasis on it, but I should have put a little more emphasis on being recognized in pro football for in Canton. So I would say that is a regret that I never set a goal to try to get there.
Okay.
But I mean, Art Shell, Terry Rubisky, and that there was some coaches, Sam Bedrosian, Kim Helton, in Green Bay, Tom Lovat. Tom Coughlin was an awesome coach. At the time, he just didn't really understand dealing with people as far as give and take. I guess everything was with Tom. It was a dictatorship, and
Still coach like that in college.
that's cool with college kids, but at a point, you're dealing with grown men. So I think he figured that out because the Giants, they won 2 Super Bowls under Tom Coughlin. So but as far as understanding football, I was around some good coaches that understood football.
Do you still follow the NFL?
Yeah.
So
just not as much as I used to.
Sure.
When I first got done for about the first 4 to 6 years, it was something you had to do on Sunday. It was just tradition. You didn't feel right. I would watch it from the beginning of talk shows all the way till that night that it was over. But now I can. I've got grandkids and other stuff. I can take it or leave it, but I do still follow. I mean, unfortunately, the only ex-team I've got that's doing well right now is Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're actually having their alumni weekend November the 10th through the 12th, and I've not been back since I played down there. I asked my wife if she wanted to go, and she's not really been a big football fan the whole time we've known each other. She could take it or leave it, and she said no. I'd just like to go back and see the guys and catch up with them, and see how everyone's doing.
So who do you root for?
I root for those 3 teams: the Raiders first, Packers second, and then Jaguars. But I played for all of them, so if the Packers are playing the Raiders in Green Bay, well, I'll root for Green Bay. If it's in Las Vegas, I'll root for there. If Jacksonville is playing one of the teams, whoever the home team is since I played for them, yeah, that's kind of who I pull for.